and good morning to you. Thank you for joining Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. My name is 𝐶 Babalola. You're welcome to the Morning Express. Kicks off at 5 a.m. all the way to 11 a.m. before the Lunch Cafe crew comes into the studio and takes over conversations on radio. My name is 𝐶 Babalola. We're super grateful to have you join us from the start of the week up until this very moment. Thank God it's a Friday. It's the last work day of the week for those of you who work, normal jobs. But for those in the media space, it's 24 hours, 7 days a week, because we have to keep you up to speed with what is happening in the community and beyond. And speaking of information, for this segment of the Morning Express, we're here to deliver to you all of the reports that have made it to the front pages of our dailies. Hence the title, Trends in the Papers. What exactly is trending? What do the papers consider to be important? What stories do the papers consider to be worthy of conversation? All of these details we're going to bring to you in about 45 minutes. That is how we're going to present the stories to you. And of course, in-depth analysis will follow so that you can have deeper understanding of these headlines that have been reported on the front pages of our dailies. Once again, this is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. My name is 𝐶 Babalola. We're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube, as we do every other show that we air on the station. So please do well to check out our streaming platforms on Facebook and YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM so that you can join the conversations online and also drop your submissions. Now, speaking of analysis, Fuhad Saheed is joining us virtually as we look through the stories in the papers this morning. Fuhad, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Sage. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing today, Fuhad?
Yeah, very good. Thank God.
Actually, I'm upset. There's a construction going on behind our house, and for some reason, they thought that midnight was the right time to construct the roof. So there was a lot of slamming, and I could hear my neighbors yelling, right beside my room. They were really upset, and I was upset too, so I didn't get more sleep. So I'm very cranky this morning. But I'll still do my job, Fuhad.
I don't know, Sage, maybe you'd have to speak up a bit. I'm struggling to hear you.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, I think it's a bit better.
Okay.
It's a bit better.
I was complaining about my neighbors. But don't worry. I don't want to talk about them already. Anyways, we do have the papers here. We have the Guardian newspaper, we have Punch, we have Vanguard, and we have the Nation newspaper. Let's start conversations today by looking at the stories that made it to the front page of the Guardian. Just for confirmation, Fuad, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. All right then, we have the first story here on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. It's reporting here, after honeymoon, tales of woe, frustration trail Tinubu's policy. We have, of course, graphical illustration here of some of the policies of this particular administration in their 8 months in power. They're talking about the burden of financing the political class's lifestyle, which has cost us about 87.3 trillion of our total public debt. They're talking about public debt, and also the expenditure and corruption and all of the amounts that it has cost us, amongst other things. So for the Guardian decided to do some sort of appraisal of the performance of this particular administration, and they highlighted some of the situations that we have been dealing with under this administration and some that spilled over from the past administration. They highlighted the fuel subsidy removal. They highlighted the headline inflation that is currently 28.20%, also food inflation that is 32.84%. Our total debt at this time is about 87 trillion naira. We still have the 133 million people living in multidimensional poverty, and I'm sure that figure would have gone up considering the economic situation that we're in right now. Still the 20 million out of school children, the relocation of multinational companies. We've lost about 6,000 jobs since this relocation started. The 33.3% unemployment rate, of which the MBS for some reason said it has reduced to 4.1% because they're using some international metrics, and also the tax policies, the value-added tax at 7.5% amongst other things, and the consequences that it now has on the standard of living on the average Nigerian. Fuad, with all of this information, how would you also appraise the performance of this administration in 8 months?
Well, I've said in some of our shows that I would want to tag along with Professor Wole Soyinka, who said that no, he would do a proper evaluation of the performance of this government after 1 year. So I won't do any evaluation now, but I'm going to speak to this particular story. Again, what the Guardian newspaper has done is to set the agenda and put it straight to this administration that the days of honeymoon are over. And of course, what they are doing with this particular report is just to aggregate the reality of many Nigerians, a lot of Nigerians at this time. I don't think the report has said what we have not said severally on the show, say, if you agree with me.
Yes.
The reality of the true policies of the government, the removal of subsidies, the issue of unification of the forex, and a whole lot of other things that, of course, have put a lot of Nigerians in this very, very unfortunate situation. I don't know if you can hear me clearly, say.
Yes, Fuad, I can hear you.
All right. So, again, the report is just, for me, an aggregation of what Nigerians are facing at this time, and of course, speaking at the doorstep of the government. Of course, practically putting it on the table of the president as a result of his policy. So the story basically just captures the reality of Nigerians at this time, the issue of inflation, the problem we're facing in the manufacturing sector, headline inflation, food inflation, insecurity, the fact that a number of multinational companies are closing shop and leaving the country. So it's just what it is, and we are hoping that, beyond sloganeering, beyond beautiful speeches, beyond vague promises and all of that, we'll get the government to really sit down and come up with a workable, sustainable model to tackle this problem. Yesterday, we were talking about the forex crisis. Now, at the IRC window, the dollar is already exchanging for over 1,000 naira. At the parallel market, it's already doing about 300 naira. Say, that's a very, very big crisis that the government has to find something to do. The government has to just come up with something. Something has to be done. We can't continue that. You understand? So it is what it is. This is the reality of Nigeria at this time. The APC government, led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has a mandate of the people to make their lives better, not worse off. And they have a 4-year mandate to do that. But the reality is that Nigerians are waiting for 4 years. If you read the Guardian newspaper, I don't know whether it's the Guardian or the Punch, but maybe not captured on the front cover. There's a back and forth between the APC in Oyo State and Governor Jᴏɪᴜ Babalola now. I think about 2 or 3 days ago, Governor Jᴏɪᴜ Babalola made a statement saying that, look, the reason why Nigerians are suffering this way is because of the policy of this government, the removal of subsidies, and that the way it was moved by the president in May was looking and having some form of introspection to really look at what the government and now, bashing him, questioning why he had to say that, and that, look, is also part of the problem, and then you have the blame game, the back and forth. Look, whether Jᴏɪᴜ Babalola says it or not, the reality is that, look, these policies of this government is the reason why Nigerians are suffering. Whether we are going to see light at the end of the tunnel, people say that, look, sometimes pain comes before pleasure. Whether the pleasure would eventually come by getting Nigerians to live a better life is what we are waiting to see. But I must say that, look, that Guardian report just captures what Nigerians are facing at this time, and we're hoping that the government will do something about it.
Right. Well, on the part of the government, the Guardian, through their graphics, have illustrated here that the renovation of residences, the expensive travels, the purchase of SUV for politicians, among other things, are also exacerbating the problem. They're just practically saying that we're not maximizing our budget, we're not using it the right way, and we're spending too much money on frivolities, unnecessary things, rather than focus on the problems that we actually have. So people should actually go read this report. It's very comprehensive, so you can understand what we're talking about. It's on page 4 and on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper.
Say, before we move on, again, that's the reason why people doubt the sincerity of the government to tackle this problem, the sincerity and commitment of the government to tackle these problems. We've said it severally while we were trying to, of course, reveal the 2024 appropriation budget, which has now been passed into law, that, look, a lot of the items we found in that budget does not show real commitment from the government, to one tighten their belt, sacrifice, and tackle the problems at hand. So that's what the Guardian is just saying again. When you keep renovating, you're buying computers, you are making allocations for necessary travel and all of that. You want to begin to doubt the sincerity of the government to tackle this problem. But again, Like I said, I've decided to take the path, to walk the path of Professor Wole Soyinka, who has said that, look, he's going to give them 12 months, and I'm waiting for, maybe when we get to May, the middle of the year, I will be able to really assess and review the performance of this government.
All right there. Thank you very much, Fuad. Like I said, this is on page 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper. Now, let's look at another story here. CISLAC faults Eniton's appointment as Obi insists no sacred cows. They are writers to this story. Northern Coalition asks Tinubu to sustain anti-corruption tempo. APC governors caution against hasty judgment. Disregards call for Tunji Ojo's sack. Coalition urges Tinubu. Now, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party has asked President Bola Tinubu not to spare anyone found culpable in the scandal uncovered at the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. This is just as the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center faulted the appointment of the permanent secretary of the ministry, Abel Olumoyiwa Eniton, to run the ministry after the suspension of Dr. Betta Edu. Fuad, we have the civil society questioning why, as a replacement for Betta Edu pending the investigation, they decided to use the permanent secretary from the same ministry as the replacement. The civil society believes that this can actually compromise the investigation. If you're using an insider to replace an insider for a ministry that is under investigation, they believe that maybe an external person should have been brought in to run the affairs of that ministry pending the investigation. Do you share this sentiment that maybe an outsider should have been brought in rather than use somebody from a ministry that is under investigation as a replacement for the suspected head of the ministry?
Well, I saw that report this morning, and of course, it's difficult to fault the position of this civil society organization. That look, I said it yesterday, I think on the open forum, that, of course, the EFCC has announced that they're also widening the net of this investigation, and they are looking at civil servants who may have also been culpable in what is happening in that ministry, right from the period of Sadiya Farouk till now Betta Edu. And of course, people will tell you that it's almost extremely difficult to have political appointees do these things without the connivance of fans within the ministry. I'm one of those kinds of people that, if you really dig deep into, you'll find that somehow they will be involved too, would be the senior civil servants in that ministry. And so what the civil society organization is saying is that, look, Betta Edu could not have been doing this in isolation. Definitely, most likely the permanent secretary, most likely the chief accounting officer of that ministry should also have gone on suspension. Because if you are going to be investigating the entire ministry, top civil servants of the ministry should also be made to step aside while the investigation is going on. That's their own argument. But I think the presidency knows better. I also think that, look, somebody has to just take charge. You understand? I think what they've simply done with the suspension of Betta Edu and the announcement of the permanent secretary to take over for now is because, well, the box stops at the minister's desk. But I share the sentiments of this civil society organization, but I will wait to see whether the presidency will react. But that's what they are saying, that, look, shouldn't be Betta Edu alone. Top civil servants of that ministry, especially the permanent secretary of that same ministry, could have also gone on suspension while the investigation is going on.
All right. Well, that's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. If you're just joining us, this is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. My name is Sage Babalola. Fuhad Saheed is also here with us in the studio. We're reviewing the Guardian newspaper this morning at this particular time. And please be aware that we're streaming live on Facebook and also on YouTube. So if you're not listening to the radio right now, you can go to Facebook. If you're in transit, go to Facebook. You can join us via our social media platforms on which we're streaming at this moment. So please join us on Facebook at Mainland 98.3 FM. You can also listen to us via Radio Garden in any part of the country that you may be at Mainland 98.3 FM. Now, to other stories, we have here Dangote refinery to reach full capacity in June as crude demand up by 2 million barrels per day. That's the headline. Now, Dangote refinery may produce at its full capacity of 650,000 barrels per day by the second quarter of this year. This comes as China leads global oil demand to 2 million barrels per day, thereby increasing total demand to about 103 million barrels per day. Wood Mackenzie, in a new outlook obtained by The Guardian yesterday, showed that a modest increase of 600,000 barrels per day would be added to refining capacity this year, and the projection noted that the increase will be met with high utilization rate and the successful ramp-up of the Middle East capacity. So, Fuad, with regards to production for Dangote refinery, they're saying that by June, the 650 million barrels per day expectation would be met, and I believe global demand of crude oil has gone up by about 2 million barrels per day. So hopefully with Dangote's involvement, we'll be able to first things first, hopefully meet our OPEC quota and be useful in the supply of crude oil, which has not gone up by 2 million barrels per day. How confident are you in Dangote's capacity, I'm talking the refinery now, to aid in the supply, first for domestic use and then maybe for exportation?
Well, it's not impossible if we do the right thing. Of course, it's showing that global demand for crude oil will continue to go up, especially because of the lingering crisis, most possibly the escalation of the crisis in the Middle East. So you're going to have situations where other parts of the world, especially other oil-producing nations in other parts of the world, could take advantage of that to also increase their own supply into the global market. But for us to be able to take advantage of all of these global indices that shows that would likely continue to go up, we have to also do our own part of the deal. We have to also clear our own mess, ensure we do things properly. And one of the things we need to tackle headlong and begin to do serious work on at this time is the issue of oil theft. Sage. Because again, it took Dangote how many months? About 2 or 3 months to be able to get 6 million barrels of crude oil, to that refinery. You understand? So, like I said, if you do that calculation, because it was coming like in two weeks, a week, and then somehow in tranches, eventually we're able to do 6 million barrels supply to that refinery. It's not going to come easy. Again, we have a timeline to work with now. They are talking about June, Abi. That in June, would have been able to do a daily supply of 650,000 barrels of crude oil to Dangote refinery. That's what the refinery reads on a daily basis, say, for it to run and operate to full capacity. But for us to do that, I say it again, it's not impossible. It's something that we should be able to do. But again, you have to pitch that against the fact that the government is also talking about revitalizing our other refineries in 2024. For example, if the Port Harcourt refinery comes on stream and is able to work to full capacity within that timeline, that refinery would also need about 215 barrels of crude oil per day. You understand? If you add that to 650,000, we're already getting close to 1 million barrels of crude oil that the two refineries will be needing on a daily basis. So we need to ask ourselves, with the challenge of crude oil theft, the issue of vandalization of facilities on most of our crude supply channels, and then the fact that we also have debt obligations that we need to meet up with in 2024. We borrow some money, and the repayment plan is to use crude to pay. If you aggregate all of those things together, you understand that look, we have to be a bit skeptical about this particular timeline. But if we are able to tidy our own side of the deal, if we are able to work hard, solve some of these problems within the oil sector, I think these are things that we can do. It's achievable. But it's not going to come easy, and it's just by mere talk and cheap statements. We have to work hard to achieve these things. But in all, if we can achieve this, say by June, I think the country will see the benefit. At least we'll be able to get some form of
this story. Now, speaking of the budget, 2024 budget explained why it settled for House correspondence. Minister of Budget later raised by the National Assembly to 800 naira the government rate of anything. Oil price can go to $120 today. I should take a period of maybe 6 months to 1 year. And in fact, I think you were quite pleased, in a manner of speaking, when you heard that they initially wanted my question, is this still relevant? The 800 naira to $1, is this still relevant, especially now that even in the IME to our current situation with exchange rate?
Well, that's the problem. The government running at over 1,000 naira, unless there's an intervention that what it means is that this is about 9.1 or 9.7 trillion naira deficit So if the implications is that look, probably have to look for more borrowing and all of that. Again, all of it as it is. But the reality is that look, whether it is $800 or on anticipated revenue generation from MDA, taxes, and all of that, most likely before the middle of this financial to borrow. Again, borrowing is not a problem. What are you borrowing for? That's the problem.
It's Kano governor. All right. Here we have today. Schools and financial institutions have announced closure. He will remain the governor court, which decision will finally lay the 8-month in all of the election. I don't know who is against who, but then residents of Kano, I cannot ask you to guess what the decision of the Supreme Court we have on ground.
No, well, we can't predict what the court will say when it comes to politics, and this is a completely different one. You know, the inconsistencies we saw with the appeal court verdict, where what was given the CTC of the judgment is complete variance to what was read out is another reason why there's so much tension in that state. That's also a state where you have a governor, Yusuf from the NNPP, who, whether you like it or not, in the last election, the support of Rabiu Kwankwaso and the NNPP Kano State is clear as daylight. You understand what I'm saying? Because that's the only state NNPP was able to win.
Yeah.
And it was quite a very tense one. There were people that were killed. There was a lot of fight. It was tense. Even on the day of announcing the results of the governorship election results, it was a very big one in Kano State. So today is the D-Day because this is the final level. The Supreme Court would give a final verdict on the election petitions in Kano State. APC, from what we got over the week, already celebrating and jubilating and expecting to win at the Supreme Court. In fact, they even have 𝐴ᴄ already say.
Yes, though.
So but Nasiru Gawuna of the APC, Abba Yusuf of the NNPP, we just have to wait to see what the Supreme Court will say about it.
Indeed. All right. Well, that's it on page 8 of the Guardian newspaper. This is still trends in the papers on mainland 98.3 FM. We have here: terrorists kill community head, 9 others abduct women in Katsina. I think this headline already tells us the story, and even digging further into the body of the story is not going to contain information that we're not aware of. It's still ridiculous, but the fact that there's this, it's like it's not consecutive, like back to back. There's no rest. They just go to these communities, they kill people, they abduct people, they collect ransom. There was a report on the Guardian, I think last week, detailing the amount of money that these bandits have been able to make over the period of, I think, 3 months. Millions of naira that they've been able to make from kidnapping and ransom collection, amongst other things. And we've reeled out solutions. We've spoken to many experts, and they've given recommendations as to how to solve the security issues, but then it just seems like nothing the government does really has any relevant impact on abating this spate of insecurity in the country.
Well, it's a big one. Say insecurity in Nigeria, especially the north central, northwestern and northeastern parts of the country. I think it's also in the Guardian newspaper. Military chiefs, the Nigerian military, is saying that look, some of the bandits and terrorists lodged in the northwestern part of the country and northeastern part of the country are now regrouping in Niger State again. That's not central. So I think what we've seen is that look, when they are dislodged in a particular part of the country, they move to another part of the country, regroup, cause mayhem there, the military goes after them again, they move to another part of the country. So it's more like a rat race. You understand? You chase them from this place, they move to another place and all of that. And that's why we're saying that look, this particular government has to come up with a different strategy. If what you've been doing consistently is not working and it's not looking like working, then you have to come up with something. Because the review of most of the stories that keep coming on the state of insecurity in the country does not show that what we are doing now is working. Recently, the president met with the service chiefs. He has strong words for them. He gave them his mandate, he gave them clear timelines, he gave them clear instructions, what he wanted and all of that. But it's one thing to give instructions and timelines. It's another thing for those things to be achieved. And if they are not achieved, what are you going to do? Are we going to go back to the era of changing service chiefs? Or we change another set of people, they come in again, the same thing happens again. So are we going to continue to change service chiefs? Or maybe we decide to now go and bring in foreigners to run our security structure, I just think that there's something fundamentally wrong about the way we are handling insecurity in the country. And that's why people are saying that instead of looking at the military and all of that, because the reality is that they are looking overstretched. Why don't we even look at the policing system? Because insecurity starts at the local level. That's where intelligence gathering matters most. A lot of these guys have sleeper cells. They are within the community. They have agents. They have informants. You understand? Why don't we devolve the security structure of the country to the local level? And that can only happen if we go into state policing arrangements. This centralized policing structure is not working. So before we begin to talk about calling the military to join the tackling of insecurity and all of that, we should have a strong policing system that goes into the local level. And then when we have all of that, we're able to gather enough intelligence, we're able to move into the communities and nip it in the bud before it becomes a big monster that we're dealing with. We would have been able to solve at least the problem by about 50% before we now begin to look at the military joining all of. But as it is, we just have an arrangement that, comes with temporary solutions, and then after some time another thing happens. It's in the news that look, most of the guys that have been dislodged in the northwest and northeast are regrouping in Niger City, is not central. So we just have to do something completely different from what we are doing now.
Well, sad one here. It's on page 8 of the Guardian newspaper. And finally, for Guardian, we have a female banker commits suicide in Ikorodu, blames economic
very unfortunate
hardship. Yeah. A marketing staff of New Generation Bank in Lagos State, Amarachi Ugochukwu, has committed suicide in the Ikorodu area of the state. Spokesperson for the Lagos State Police Command, Benjamin Hundeyin, who confirmed the incident yesterday, said Ugochukwu was found dead inside the staff toilets. To summarize the story, Fuad, she committed suicide. She ingested an insecticide, and she had her suicide notes in the toilet of the bank where she worked, where she wrote, she's going through financial hardship. Her figures are low. She's overwhelmed. Apologizing to her family, but she had to take this decision amongst other things. And the story here is creating sensitization about suicide prevention and also the suicide prevention initiative of the government, amongst other things. But it has gotten to the point where people are thinking suicide is better than the life that they're living with their economic condition in the country. It's scary that people are choosing death, literally choosing death.
It's a very sad story. Sad story because, again, she wrote a note, basically just highlighting what a lot of Nigerians are facing at this time. The hardship in the land, things have become very tough. Her figures are very low. I guess maybe because she's a marketer, she's a marketing staff,
she couldn't meet her
probably she's on target. Because again, if you look at the note that my figures are so low could mean that, look, she's on target and she has a lot of pressure, and all of that. And if you understand the kind of pressure that marketers face, only bank staff who are marketers, and then, of course, I'm sure the economic realities of Nigerians at this time, the very poor economy and all of that has also compounded at it. But suicide can never be an option, or should never be an option. Suicide in itself does not solve any problem. What she has basically done, which is very unfortunate, is that, look, what would the position of her parents now? Because if you look at the note, she's apologizing to her parents, apologizing to her loved ones, family members. She has not done anything good to them. She has made things worse for them. You understand? And that's why I keep saying that, look, at this time, can Nigerians find a way to take care of ourselves, help ourselves, be there for ourselves, watch out for one another at this trying period? This is the time for you to look out for people. This is the time to open hand to people. This is not the time to do show off. I keep saying it. Oh, it's not for you to now take all your money to religious house and all of the jamborees that come with it. Your next door neighbor. What's happening to your next door neighbor? Can you knock on people's doors to say, are you fine? Are you okay? How can I be of help? This is the time for Nigerians to stand up for one another. I must say. And that's why I keep saying that, look, let us find a way to take care of ourselves. It's very, very important. This is the time to share, to give. Because again, we may begin to see more of these kinds of stories. God speak.
Well, it's on page 9 of the Guardian newspaper. Thank you for coming along with us. We're about to segue now to the Punch newspaper today on trends in the papers on mainland 98.3 FM. Appreciation to everyone who's streaming us live on Facebook and YouTube. We're very thankful. If you would like to also join those who are streaming us live on Facebook, please do so. Go to mainland 98.3 FM on Facebook and join our live stream, so that you can also use that platform to send your contributions when we finally open the phone lines. Now, over to the Punch newspaper, we have here Union Polaris Keystone. CBN planned shareholder summit compiles new directors list. Apex Bank to discuss bank's future with stakeholders. New chairman, EDs to be named soon. That's the executive directors. Now, indications have emerged that the Central Bank of Nigeria leadership would hold meetings with shareholders of Union Bank of Nigeria, Polaris Bank and Keystone Bank this weekend or early next week as a follow-up to the sack of the boards of directors of the three banks. The CBN had on Wednesday fired the boards of the banks, citing corporate governance failure and non-compliance with regulatory requirements, amongst others. So basically, Fuhad, it's just a follow-up to the sacking of this bank directors at the midst of all the many allegations that were leveled against said directors, who I believe are being investigated as we speak, and they were immediately replaced. And also the CBN yesterday abated the fears of people that their monies are safe, nothing is going to happen to their monies, but now they are meeting with the new heads on strategies as to how to reinvent the banks and correct whatever inadequacies might have been playing out within those banks.
Well, that's the right thing to do. The future of the bank has to be protected. Like you rightly pointed out, the deposits of the monies of depositors are safe. So there shouldn't be any panic. Although there's going to be some form of panic. Nigerians are always a bit apprehensive when things like this come up. So you probably will find a situation where some depositors are still going to go on panic mode. But I know that the structure we have in the banking sector, no matter what happens to a bank, to a great extent, the monies of depositors are safe. If you understand, we are not in the old era where banks collapse and people lose their money. I think we've grown past that stage. It used to be a thing of the past. I remember Society General, Savannah Bank, the days of the old banks, where a bank goes into liquidation and people lose all their money. But, with AMCON and some other institutions of government, all of that cannot happen again. So I think it's important that we retrace again and emphasize the fact that monies of depositors are safe. What we are just saying is the CBN doing its job, its regulatory job of ensuring that, things are done properly within the banking sector. And these banks have to be restructured. The leadership of the banks have to be restructured. And stakeholder engagement is one of the ways of, putting it straight and new direction for the bank in terms of management and ownership structure. So it's just a way of course, restructuring the bank and making them perform to what is required, the standards that are required.
All right. Well, that's it for that story. It's on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. Here we have Lagos NBA protesters storm police headquarters over brutality against lawyers. Now, human rights activist and senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, has called on the Nigeria police to conduct proper investigations into the case of brutality against lawyers in Lagos State. Falana made the call on Thursday during a peaceful protest organized by members of the Nigeria Bar Association against the unlawful arrest and detention of a lawyer, Olumide Sonupe, by the police in the state. Fuad, this lawyer went to the police station to see his client, and then on getting there...
I'm starting to hear you say. Can you speak up a bit?
Fuad, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so we're talking about the brutalization of lawyers, and Femi Falana San and other protesters, members of the NBA. They are protesting because of a particular incident that happened. The lawyer went to defend his client. He went to the police station to see his client, and then he was accused of being disrespectful to the police officers and speaking to the clients without a police officer being present. He was detained, and apparently following his release 2 days after his health had deteriorated, he was allegedly brutalized by said police officers, and he's in terrible condition at this time. And so this triggered members of the Nigeria Bar Association to take to the streets to protest why police officers feel the need to assault lawyers or legal luminaries when they go to the police station to see their clients.
if the police can assault a lawyer,
Who are you?
what happens to ordinary Nigerians? Eh? Because at least both times when lawyers appear in police stations, they are treated with some level of respect because they know that, of course, they can take it up with them or, using the law. But for the gain, this particular story, I think what we can pick from this is to look at the operations of our police force generally when it comes to dealing with Nigerians. Because he's a lawyer, we are saying this and Femi Falana is on him. But this is what a lot of Nigerians face in the hands of police officers, and all of that. I think we just have to begin to look at how to be more procedural, how to be more properly behaved as the people. Then when it comes to institutions of government like police, military, and all of that, you keep brutalizing people, you keep harassing people, and all of those kind of things. You stop. It's not we are not a country of barbarians. It's a country governed by law. And one is that every institution of government should be able to operate within the ambit of the law. Why would a lawyer be brutalized? You understand? And then this idea of illegal detention, you know who I am, I'm going to use the police to arrest you, and then keeping people in police station for too long without charging them to court, and all of those things have to stop. So, Femi Falana is on this, and I'm sure that he has the capacity to be able to sort all of this out and bring some form of closure to it. But generally, I think what I can bring from this story is that, look, this is what a lot of Nigerians say, this brutalization of ordinary Nigerians by the police. It's because he's a lawyer that we are saying a lot of Nigerians face this almost on a daily basis.
Well, page 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper has the story. Moving forward, we have here Humanitarian Ministry, EFCC summons 20 directors, others. As follow-up to the probe of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has summoned 20 senior directors and officials of the ministry. Some of the officials, the Punch learned, were questioned by investigators at the EFCC headquarters on Thursday. This latest development followed a detailed investigation report on the ministry and recommendations presented by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission to the EFCC on Tuesday. Now, a source, according to the Punch newspaper, said that the investigation has spread into even as far back as 2019 when said ministry was created. There's apparently a lot of financial misappropriations that have happened since 2019 when the ministry was founded, and about 20 more civil servants have been called in by the EFCC to answer questions. Now, they've not been arrested according to this report. They're just called in for interrogation and to answer questions. Fuad, I think I have to ask you, there has to be some satisfaction that comes with knowing that this is not just something that is being swept under the carpet, and it's not just one person being investigated. Everybody who is suspected to have been complicit is being called in for questioning. Is this one of those few cases where we see the law really, really take its course?
Well, it's a good one. It's a good one that, at least, like I said, the net of this investigation is being widened. Even as far back as 2019, which is a good one. But again, until we see prosecution, you understand, until we now see people indicted, having their day in court and all of that, I would still see this as just, a form of raising the dust. Because it's not the first time we have high-profile case of corruption, and then we hear all of the noise, we get all of the reports, and at the end of the day, nothing happens. You understand what I'm saying? So we just have to wait to see if there's going to be any form of closure to this. And what's the closure I'm talking about? That people are indicted and they have their day in court, they are diligently prosecuted, and then we see some form of punishment meted out to them to serve as a form of deterrent. Until we see all of that, I'm sorry, I'm still going to be a bit skeptical about the whole story. It's good that we have this investigation. It's good that everybody that goes involved in this is being called in for questioning. But it's not as important as us having some form of closure. And what's the closure? We see some form of prosecution, and so we see some form of punishment meted out to people.
All right, well, there you have it. Page 2 of the Punch newspaper. We're moving forward now. Widows of soldiers killed in 1992 plane crash demand compensation. I think it was yesterday. The soldiers that fought in the Civil War, 1966, I think, were still saying that they had not received their pension, and now wives of soldiers that died in the 1992 plane crash are saying that they have not been compensated since 1992. What exactly is our problem with compensating people? I mean, we make provisions for this, right? Like we make provisions for compensation. Why is it so hard to just hand out the compensation and the pension to those who deserve it? Hello? Okay, well, we've almost come to the end of the show though, but I still want to take advantage of every single minute that we have left to review at this story. Once we get Fuad back on the line, I believe you will address the question I asked earlier. Oh, okay, I think we have him now. Fuad?
Yes.
Did you get my last question?
Okay, the soldiers that died in the military plane crash.
Yes, their wives are saying they've not been, the widows, that they've not been compensated since 1992.
It's unfortunate, really, because again, when we begin to question the patriotism of people tonight to the country, these are some of the things that comes up. You know, we remember clearly when that plane crash happened. Over 100 young middle-ranking soldiers died in that plane crash in Lagos. Yeah, I think it was around Indigo in Lagos. Yeah, you know, and how many years down the line? About 30-something years, or 20-something years. Hello, say.
I'm with you, Fuad. Please go on.
Yes, you know that incident happened, and up till now, it is shocking to hear that families of those victims, the soldiers who are supposed to be our heroes, have not been compensated. They've not even gotten any benefit. It's unfortunate. How do you explain that now, say? Because those are guys who died in service of the nation. I think they were moving from Lagos or coming to Lagos for a training or something. And young guys, middle-ranking soldiers, officers, died in that plane crash, and their wives are protesting now that almost 3 decades down the line, they've not gotten any compensation, no benefit, nothing. How do you explain that now? Is it that we don't have money to pay them, or we don't just even value the sacrifice of these heroes of the nation? So when we keep talking about patriotism and all of that, how do you place that against this kind of story?
It's on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. And finally, TB Joshua made childless couples to exchange spouses, says ex-worker. Okay. Have you seen the documentary, Fuad? The TB Joshua documentary? Have you watched it? Hello?
Yes, I'm with you, sorry, Sage. I'm struggling to hear you. It's sounding very fast.
And I can hear you perfectly. There's a story here on the front page of the Punch. TB Joshua made childless couples exchange spouses, according to an ex-worker of
childless couple to exchange what?
Spouses. You know, if you can't give each other children, maybe try another person's husband, you try another person's wife. According to the worker, that's what they're saying. They're alleging that it happened. Have you been able to watch the documentary? I saw the first hour, but I'm tired.
No. So what it looks a bit funny because you have childless couples who have come to the synagogue, and they say exchange husband.
Yes, or exchange wife. So we know who has
Is that supposed to be a scientific or a spiritual procedure to solving their problem?
That's what the worker is alleging that he used to do.
What I'm saying that if you, let's even try to pick the brain of the late founder of the church. You know, the idea of swapping or exchanging couples, spouses, sorry. So is that a spiritual solution or a scientific solution?
I don't know, because maybe he's just trying to say, it might be you, maybe your spirit do not work together. Go and try another person's spirit.
You know what, see, this synagogue story, like I said, I watched the BBC documentary, and I'm quite familiar as to how the church became what it is today, the Synagogue Church of All Nations. So although the church has been reacting, they've also responded to the BBC documentary, saying that a lot of the guys that were interviewed are not known to the church. But if you look at the BBC documentary, you see that, look, they even have footage, they have videos of when those guys were working as workers of the church. I think that, look, I think the reality is that, look, Africans have a way, or Africans generally, when it comes to understanding of religion, we've gotten it wrong completely. You know, we've turned it upside down. You know, the essence of religion we don't even understand. You know, we've messed it up. And I think the problem is that we've commercialized religion.
Yeah.
It's become a commercial thing. It's become a sort of money-making venture. And because of that, because of the commercial orientation that now comes with religion in Africa, this is what you're getting. Because again, for me, religion is basically about faith and salvation. As a Muslim, I understand that, look, it's majorly about what you believe in. And at the end of the day, it's about salvation the hereafter. Whatever you get in this world is what you do with yourself and what you are not able to do with yourself. But the promise of religion, for me, my own understanding, is about salvation and the hereafter. Every other thing is about what you are able to do for yourself or not. So, but again, it is what it is. I think a lot of people have an opportunity to look at these things and learn from it, and then, of course, make their own decisions, how they want to handle their religious beliefs.
Right. Well, that's it for the Punch newspaper. I'll just, just look through the other headlines. Vanguard is saying attacks. Governor Alia bars local government chairman from leaving domains. In Benue State, Governor Alia is saying that local government chairman cannot go anywhere. You stay there and work with the security operatives, and you make sure that your people are safe. You're not going anywhere. That's what Governor Alia of Benue State is saying.
But you have to do beyond just giving them instruction. You have to, fund it and ensure that it works with them. Local arrangement.
Right.
Again, it goes back to this issue of local policing we are talking about.
Right. Well, we are out of time, unfortunately, but at least we're able to talk about most of the stories that were reported. This is still trends in the papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. Actually, it has come to an end. We're going on a commercial break. When we come back, it'll be time for Mainland Focus. This is where we open the phone lines and allow you an opportunity to speak on the stories that have been addressed earlier. Thank you, Fuad, for your analysis. Don't go anywhere. This is the Sound of Lagos, Mainland 98.3 FM.